Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of April 20th. Once again, we are recording it on the 15th, and we are getting ready for Record Store Day. Our music producer, Lynn Orman, comes through with some really good guests and some topics and things that I include in the show. And I reached out to her. I say, you got anything? And she said, yeah, Record Store Day. And so we're going to have Trevor Toppen of Valhalla's Records joining us. I just want to say a couple things leading up to it, that in getting ready for this interview, I had a lot of memories floating through my mind about record stores and what a magnet they were for young people and our teens. I'm 82 years old, so I remember going to record stores from 1956 on. I think the first record I ever got was Pledging My Love by Johnny Ace. A little bit later, I got a Big Bill Broonzy album, and I had various versions of one record store in my hometown. I started going to them again when we had the Heartland Cafe up here, and we went to Round Records, and then later my kids' band Twin Peaks did some record store days, and records have come back. So without any more talk from me, let's bring on our guest, Trevor Toppen. Good afternoon to you, Trevor.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'll follow up on what you just said. It's definitely become something that there's been a rebirth in the younger generation really embracing vinyl, which has been exciting. So, if you were to rewind at our store maybe 10 years, our typical customer was probably 50-year-old guy listening to classic rock and folk. And now it's great because it's I would say more than 70% of our customers are 30 and under, and very ethnically diverse, and just as many women participating as men. And ultimately at a record store, what's great is it's about conversations, right? It's not about being able to buy that record, but to come in and discover something new, talk to people about what they're listening to. And the more diverse the people are in that conversation, the better the conversation. So it's been great.
Yeah, well, record stores are a place to go. When you travel sometimes, I remember going to Madison and looking through records. I still have a lot of records. I don't know if I could show you over here.
Nice.
Tons of records. And I'm not sure what to do with them, but I remember when Twin Peaks put out their first record, they didn't even do a CD of it. They, I think they may have reissued it later, but they were all excited about records, and now you get them in different colors, and with enough of that, let's talk about Record Store Day and your own record store, Valhalla's. Let's do Record Store Day first, and then we can give us some history of Valhalla's.
Yeah, so Record Store Day is this amazing event. It is Christmas and Hanukkah and Easter and Valentine's Day all wrapped up together for us. It's the big day of the year.
Make it a national holiday.
It is, yeah. As far as we're concerned, it is a national holiday. So, but basically, what it is there's an organization, Record Store Day, that stemmed from indie record stores, and they've worked with artists and labels to curate all these really interesting releases. So sometimes it's maybe a record that's been out of print for a long time, or it's a special edition of a vinyl. Maybe it's, lost tracks from something that get reissued. So it's definitely appeals to sort of the collector mentality. So, the list this year, I want to say that we're probably bringing in, title-wise, probably 320 titles of records, times however many quantity we were getting of each of them. So it's lots of stuff. There's a little something for everybody. So.
Is Record Store Day celebrated by chain record stores, or is it a solely independent? And what is the situation with chains versus independents?
Sure. I would say, there are like regional chains of stores where it's like more than one storefront, but at the heart of it, it's indie record stores. So it's not, the fact that Target sells vinyl, Target's not participating in, Record Store Day. So it tends to be, most of Record Store Day is made up of independent single store places, but there's some great other record stores in Chicago, like Reckless. It's, they have 3 locations, so they're a chain, but, at the heart of it, they're an indie record store as well. So they'll be participating.
Well, tell us about Valhalla's, because it's been around for a long time. I think back in the old days with Rising Up Angry, the organization and newspaper that I was affiliated with, we used to drop papers off there.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And then later the Heartland Journal, I think we dropped it off there. Record stores were the place that you went to get information on the draft or the war or the good music and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so Val's is 52 years old this year. I'll be 53 in July, and basically founded by this amazing woman, Val Camilletti, who passed in 2018. But her legacy, she's still every part of this store. So my personal history. So Shane Blakely is the store manager, and he's been here for 23 years, and he's just gone over the 40 mark. So most of his life he's been working records here in at Valhalla. So my involvement, most record stores that went through the Napster years, the 90s, struggled through that period because suddenly music was free. And so like most independent record stores, it was struggling when Val passed, and Shane was kind of trying to keep it going with one arm tied behind his back. So I got involved just after that. He'd announced the store was going to close in November of 19. And I've lived in the community for a long time. And I said that, that can't happen. And we got to figure out a way to keep this going. So I said, if somebody were to come in and help you out, would you continue to run this? And he said, sure, but who'd be dumb enough to do that? And I said, well, I might be dumb enough to do that. So, but the one thing that I like to say is I don't like to think of myself as the new owner of Val's, because that just somehow seems blasphemous. I like to think that I'm the current steward of Val's. This place is owned by Val, or it's owned by our community. It's a living, breathing thing. So it's really cool.
What were you doing before you got involved with Val's?
Yeah, so I'm a bean counter by trade. So I'm not a musician. I'm a music lover. I got a family full of artists and musicians. But it was one of those things where I do consulting, helping troubled companies, and so it was like, this is something that I can use my skill set to help a business that's important to me. So it's been remarkably rewarding. So.
What do you have planned for this Saturday?
Yeah, so the very first part of the day tends to be there are all those gems that people want to get that are limited edition quantity, and we're only going to get 4 or 5. So people will start, last Record Store Day, we had a guy that got in line at 10:30 the night before so he could be first person in line. But I will probably start my day showing up here at about 5:30 in the morning. We open at 9. And I'll be serving coffee to the probably 20 or 30 people that will be in line already at 5:30. So, so the first part of the day is it's chaos, and the store's full with people all scrambling to get their titles. But then we're going to settle in around noon, and we've got live music going all day as well. So while the exclusive titles are an important part of Record Store Day, celebrating the environment of record stores and what that means is kind of an important part as well. So that's, so we plan on having musicians and live music, and we have specials all day. There's a place across the street, Taco Mucho is an amazing restaurant he's going to be making tacos out back. And so it's just it's a big party all day long.
What are some of the live musicians you've had in the past? And if you want to mention any that are coming up this week. Sure.
So I guess probably most iconically, a band that I certainly dear to our hearts, Flat Five, great sort of super group out of Chicago, has played here before. Last Record Store Day, we actually were very blessed. Cesar Rosas of Los Lobos played with the Chi-Town Playboys. So it was a collection of local blues artists. And again, that was kind of this strange, one day Cesar walked into the store. We talked for a while. I didn't recognize who he was because he didn't have the iconic sunglasses on. And because of that, we had, I think, a human conversation instead of a fan, artist conversation. And we kind of struck up a friendship. And, he's been, when he comes into town, he usually stops in the store. And we've been carrying a copy. His first album, the Los Lobos' first album, was before they were signed to a record label, and it's pretty rare. And he still had some copies, and he's been selling them to us that we've been offering to our customer base for the last year or so. And opportunity came up. He was around the holidays. He came into town. And I said, we'd love to sell more of those records. And I'm like, well, if you put your keister on that stage, maybe we could sell a bunch of them. And we looked at his schedule, and Los Lobos tours all the time, and magically he played last Record Store Day. And then probably most famously, John Prine was a huge fan of Val's in the store, and he used to bring his test pressings to her to listen. And when she passed, he came and insisted on doing a memorial in her honor. So really special. So obviously he continues to hold an important place in our heart as well.
What are some of the hottest vinyls these days in your store and even beyond? Sure.
Obviously the queen of all vinyl and all music at this point is Taylor Swift. And it's staggering how much influence she has. I think that last Record Store Day, there were like the top two titles that were sold through Record Store Day. I think there was a Pearl Jam title that was a live album that maybe accounted for 15,000 copies worldwide that were being sold. And I want to say that Taylor Swift was like 135,000. And 135,000 was a tenth of what was needed to supply the demand. I mean, it's staggering how much she has appeal across different generations, different people. She's a force of nature.
Yeah, she's something else, and she has pretty good politics, from my understanding.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for her.
Right. She has, to add to Record Store Day, she actually has a new album coming out on Friday as well. So that adds to all of the chaos that we get to deal with coming up. How
many of her record do you think you'll sell on Saturday? How many did you get?
I would guess we're still finding out. So it is a very last minute, like they're not here yet. And she's very careful about making sure that stuff doesn't get delivered until release day so that nothing can get leaked. So, I will probably have a couple hundred copies in store. So, and they'll go off the shelf pretty quickly. So,
one of the things that Lynn Orman, our music producer, gave me in a list of things is she says, "Are you pressing records? Do you actually do any pressing of records?"
Yes. So Lynn and I ran into each other there's this great organization called the Bitter Gesture Music Festival. And it's up in Highland Park, and it's essentially an organization that supports young emerging artists. So bands half the members have to be 21 and under. And they get submissions. It's essentially a battle of the bands type of a competition, but they get submissions from all over the country. And they do 4 nights of competition, whittling down to a finals. And the finals in 2022 were supposed to be held in July up in Highland Park. And unfortunately, that's when the unfortunate shooting happened. And so all the artists were up there during the parade when this unfortunate happened. So thanks to the generosity of Billy Corrigan from Smashing Pumpkins, they ended up holding the finals later that year in September at his place, Madame Zuzu's. And they got an amazing board recording off of this really special concert. And at this point, it was still a competition, but any aspect of competition had gone away. This was a healing moment of artists getting together to support a community. And so we partnered with them, and we actually pressed that record to vinyl. So it was the first record that Val's has done in the 50 years. And we're proud again. So 2023's finals, we recorded it as well. And we just, that's coming out. I think they were pressed at Smash Plastic here in Chicago, and that'll be released probably at the end of this month. And we're taking pre-order copies on Record Store Day for that record as well. So
there's a big gap. There's a big gap between someone ordering an album to be pressed and when it happens. My understanding. Sure. I had one son was in what was the name of that band? Smith Westerns, and then my son Cadian was in Twin Peaks, and he has a new album out called Dizzy under the name Lake J. And I know that I think it's almost till December till they're going to get the actual vinyl
in hand. Yeah.
That's the way it is generally, or are there more people setting up presses to do more?
There's been a lot of investment presses. I think people, you had a huge boom in vinyl, and I think everyone was waiting to see, is this just a fad or is this something that's going to stick? And I think enough increases every year have finally demonstrated the fact that this is for real. And so there's been a lot of investment in presses. So lead times are starting to come down quite a bit too, which is great.
Do you have a favorite album, a favorite performer?
Yeah, I would say over the course of my lifetime, the most significant performer is probably Peter Gabriel. Uh, and I was fortunate enough to see him again this coming through Chicago this year, which was great. And it was also cool because I have two sons, one's at college and one's a senior in high school, and getting to see that show with them because I was their age and younger when I really first got into Peter Gabriel, so it was kind of a cool capstone moment for me. So it was really great.
Uh, any advice to young musicians about getting their music out into the world?
I do. So one, we do, we've got a stage here at Val's, and a large part of our mission is to give opportunities for young artists to play. If you're under 21, there's a lot of places that you can't play in Chicago. And so we've made a concerted effort to be a place where people can come. But essentially, if you're a young artist and you want to be in places, my main recommendation is go see shows and go meet other artists that are out there. It's the like the tide rises all boats, right? So get out there and support other musicians and meet people. And actually, this Bitter Jester Music Festival is a great example of 40 bands are going to get together and meet each other. And probably the best part of it is the networking opportunities that come out of it. So go support other musicians, and it'll come back to you. So
one more time, give us the address of Valhalla's and the date, which is Saturday the 20th. I'll do that.
Yeah. So Val's Halla Records. We're at 239 Harrison in Oak Park. And we open at 9 a.m. on Record Store Day. And if there are those gems that you want to get, come in line early and I'll come out and get you a cup of coffee.
Well, I tell you what, we only have a couple minutes left. So talk about music, about records, anything you like, anything that strikes your fancy for the next couple minutes.
Sure. I guess one of the things that pops in my head with the young generation, getting into vinyl, we get asked a lot, like, does music sound better on vinyl? And I don't think there's this empirical, like, yes, no answer. There's some preferential stuff. Really well recorded music on a great stereo system is going to sound great. But I think to a generation that is always on their phones and is always engaged in 10 things at once, like the idea of I'm going to go listen to a record means I'm going to put the needle on and I'm going to kind of stop what I'm doing. And for people, I think the young generation, I don't know that they tangibly know why they love it so much, but I think it's that they're unplugged from everything else. And so you're actively listening to music as opposed to like passively listening while you're doing something else on your phone or whatever. And there's something very zen, I think, about what that is. And I think that's a big part of why the appeal has continued to this young generation for continuing to pursue vinyl. So.
Do you find any of the younger people listening to blues, traditional blues, Chicago blues?
So what's interesting is a lot of the entry point for a young customer is hip hop. But what is really cool is a customer that's coming in for vinyl is curious, right? They're taking this new exploration into this new format, and so inevitably what happens is, oh, there's that hook on this record. What got sampled on that record? And I'll tell you what it largely leads them to is now they're buying jazz records and they're buying blues records because that's the beat that was behind that amazing track that they know. And so there's this really cool discovery moment of where did that come from, and bringing them back to the roots of great American music. So.
Well, I'm going to do a shout out to the late, great John Sinclair, who put on the Ann Arbor Blues and Jazz Festivals, and he passed away last week. And we did have an earlier interview with him, but he was just someone in my life that really put it out there for people to listen to jazz and to blues and the things that a lot of the young rock and rollers back in the day didn't know about, right, and helped to popularize it. And I got to admit that I like it all. I like the rock and roll. I like the blues. I like the jazz. I even listened to a little classical in my old age.
Sure.
Okay, Trevor.
When you expose yourself to things, you learn that there's great stuff in all of those genres. So
Okay, you were a great interview, and I hope you get a whole lot of people coming out to Valhalla's record store, not only on a record store day on Saturday the 20th, but forever. And thanks a lot.
We appreciate it. Take care.
All right.